Hello, good people. Now, a few months back, I came across this letter from a Roman about Jesus. It was on my timeline, just the algorithm brought it up. And when the author read it, there was very little context. But it was really the most blasphemous thing I'd ever heard outside of edgelord atheist memes. So I was interested. Anyway, here's a question. If you find out that your religion is based on a lie, but it's made you a better person, does it matter? So let's say Jesus never lived. Does that mean Christianity is not real? We're going to come back to this question later. Now, this letter does not say that. It's supposedly from the year 177 AD about Jesus by a man named Celsus or Celsus. Now, in Latin, the C is pronounced K and not like an S. So for the audience, for us English speakers, I'll pronounce it Celsus. But I just need to insert a little footnote there. Now, if you're a devout Christian, don't worry. We don't have the original letter. We only have Origen's refutation of the letter. Basically, we've got the debunk of this letter and not the letter itself. But as you know from debunking, just because someone shouts debunk does not mean that a thing has been debunked. So it's up to you to decide. That's just the disclaimer. Going to throw it right here at the beginning. Now, we'll get to the highlights of the letter. I'll link the full thing below as well as the video that started this whole thing. Celsus starts off by attacking the virgin birth. He calls it a lie. This is what he says. He says, "Let us imagine a Jew, let alone a philosopher, might say to Jesus," okay, let's acknowledge first the dig at Jews. This guy would be shocked to learn that 2,000 years later, Jews are considered intellectuals. Anyway, "Is it not true, good sir, that you fabricated the story of your birth from a virgin to quiet rumors about the true and unsavory circumstances of your origin? Is it not the case that far from being born in the royal David's city of Bethlehem, you were born in a poor country town, and of a woman who earned her living by spinning? Is it not the case that when her deceit was uncovered, to wit, that she was pregnant by a Roman soldier called Panthera, she was driven away by her husband, the carpenter, and convicted of adultery?" Wow. First off, if this is true, Jesus is not half God, but half metal. Celsus goes on to say that the people who wrote the Bible stole this virgin birth story from the Greeks. Okay, I'm not mad about this. I know some of you may be mad about this. I'm not mad about this. The virgin birth always seemed a little bit of a stretch. I love Christmas and I love the Christmas story, and this passage doesn't affect that at all. Plus, I think it's really sweet that Jesus would clean up his mother's reputation like that. All mothers are perfect beings to their children. I think it's sweeter that Jesus was like, "Mom, you weren't perfect to the world, but you were perfect to me." That is beautiful. And I don't think any less of Mary because of this, even if it's true, which we don't know that it is. That means she was so much stronger than the Bible portrayed her as. That's the movie I want to see. I'd watch it every Christmas after Die Hard. Every single Christmas. Single mother Mary, who against all odds raised the most important man to ever live. And that man pulled "I'd like to thank God and my mama for all my success." That's a great story. Dude is a hater. Celsus on Christianity, biting other religions, or being unoriginal. Okay, says this. "Many of the ideas of the Christians have been expressed better and earlier by the Greeks, who were, however, modest enough to refrain from saying that their ideas came from a god or a son of God. The ancients in their wisdom revealed certain truths to those able to understand. Plato, son of Ariston, points to the truth about the highest good when he expressed that it cannot be expressed in words, but rather comes from familiarity, like a flash from the blue, imprinting itself upon the soul. But Plato, having said this, does not go on to record some myth to make his point, as do many others, nor does he silence the inquirer who questions some of the truths he professes. Plato does not ask people to stop questioning or to accept that God is like such and such. Rather, he tells us where his doctrines come from. There is, in short, a history to what he says, and he is happy to point to the sources of his knowledge instead of asking us to believe that he speaks on his own authority. Not only do they misunderstand the words of the philosophers, they even stoop to assigning words of philosophers to their Jesus. For example, we are told that Jesus judged the rich with the saying, "It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God." Yet we know that Plato expressed this very idea in a purer form when he said, "It is impossible for an exceptionally good man to be exceptionally rich." Is one utterance more inspired than the other? That's actually a good point. The Bible took a lot from the mythology and philosophy at the time. Nothing really exists in a vacuum. And the Bible was written on the Mediterranean. So Greece, Rome, Egypt, all of these great ancient civilizations also existed there. Celsus is basically saying that the Bible is dumbed down Greek mythology. So we see that people have been complaining about the new trends since forever. Also, the Greek myths did everything. Are we really going to pull Simpsons did it with religion? Yes. Yes, because Celsus is a catty bitch and we stand his villainy. So he also said on the Christian Armageddon, they, Christians, postulate, for example, that their Messiah will return as a conqueror on the clouds and that he will rain fire upon the earth in his battle with the princes of the air, and that the whole world, with the exception of believing Christians, will be consumed in fire. An interesting idea, and hardly an original one. The idea came from Greeks and others, namely that after cycles of years and because of fortuitous conjunctions of certain stars, there are conflagrations and floods, and that after the last flood, in the time of Deucalion, the cycle demands a conflagration in accordance with the alternating succession. This is responsible for the silly opinion of some Christians that God will come down and rain fire upon the earth. It is equally silly of these Christians to suppose that when their God applies the fire like a common cook, all the rest of mankind will be thoroughly scorched, and that they alone will escape unscorched. Not just those alive at the time, mind you, but, they say, those long since dead will rise up from the earth possessing the same bodies as they did before. I ask you, is this not the hope of worms? For what sort of human soul is it that has any use for a rotted corpse of a body? It is nothing less nauseating and impossible. Now, he's got a point about that, but I thought their bodies would be restored through some kind of movie magic. Celsus really just said that the resurrection would look like a zombie movie. Now, the Bible passage for this is funny too. Let me just read it to you really quick. This comes from 1 Corinthians. It says, "Now, if Christ is proclaimed as raised from the dead, how can some of you say that there is no resurrection of the dead? But if there is no resurrection of the dead, then not even Christ has been raised. And if Christ has not been raised, then our preaching is in vain and your faith is in vain." I also appreciate that Celsus is comparing the Christian God to a chef at Benihana. I like it. Anyway, Celsus calls the apostles bums. Jesus, having gathered around him 10 or 11 persons of notorious character, the very wickedest of tax collectors and sailors, fishermen and tax gatherers, who had not acquired even the merest elements of learning, fled in company with them from place to place, and obtained his living in a shameful and inopportune manner. So he's mad that the apostles had jobs and they weren't men of leisure, that they weren't the aristocracy. So we're good with fishermen now, so this is kind of a foreign critique to us. He's being mad that some of them were tax gatherers, but who are they collecting taxes for, sir? And finally, my favorite attack is on Jesus's miracles. So listen to this. He says of Mary, that after being driven away by her husband and wandering about for a time, she disgracefully gave birth to Jesus, an illegitimate child, who, having hired himself out as a servant in Egypt on account of his poverty, and having there acquired some miraculous powers on which the Egyptians greatly pride themselves, he returned to his own country, highly elated on account of them, and by means of these proclaims himself a god. Because we all know that the Egyptians just know magic. Okay, let's not gloss over that. What kind of miraculous powers are we talking about here? Is this like some David Blaine kind of stuff? Like it seems like he's levitating? Or is he actually flying with no wires? The early Christians were actually known for their magic and that it worked. And that's how they supposedly got a lot of converts. A real God is going to give you results. Remember that. So I went out and I bought this early Christian magic book about the early Christians in Egypt. And there was nothing really in there. I thought it would have all these secrets, but there wasn't really anything in there except love spells and how to ward off runes. I mean, I'm sure a lot was lost, but I just wasn't impressed. You know what book has a lot of real world magic in it? Physics for Scientists and Engineers. Real magic that really works. But I digress. I guess even in ancient Egypt, you needed to get rid of rats and you needed to get laid. Okay, back to Jesus's magic though. Did the Egyptians know how to turn water into wine? Did they know how to multiply fish? I'm thinking no, because in another video I'm shooting, I'll probably release it next week, we talk about the Egyptian Dark Ages. So maybe they figured it out in the 2,000 years between the Dark Ages and Christianity. I don't know. I'm guessing Celsus is accusing Jesus of being an illusionist, the best illusionist in Judea. Like Jesus could get a residency at the Mirage if he were alive today. But A lot of that stuff was lost. It's just lost to history. Still, I'm like, did y'all have some real magic? Real magic? Well, maybe. He's a sorcerer, I tell you, a sorcerer. Anyway, so that's the letter. Let me know what you think. Do you think that this letter is even real? Do you think that Celsus is correct or that Origen is correct? Doesn't matter to you at all, because a lot of people go to church for the community and they don't care if Mary was a virgin or if Jesus could multiply fish. Some people don't even care if these people ever existed. They're not taking the Bible literally. We haven't for a long time. Anyway, in my opinion, much of the Bible is real, even if it didn't happen. Merry Christmas. Subscribe.